One, and we are live, kind of. It's still a bit early in the morning for me. I am Father James, and this is the Barely Protestant YouTube channel. And we have two guests with us today, a Goy for Jesus and the other Paul. How are you both doing?
I'm a little tired. I was working late last night for my job, so from home at least. So
Yeah, same here. Staying up late for some church work, and then I found out some of this alien stuff. I mean, I heard about it coming out, but then
yeah,
I didn't get a chance to really look into it until late last night. So I slept pretty late, and then um like we had it scheduled originally for 6 a.m. and I'm like I'm just way too tired now. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
I needed one more hour of sleep. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm going quite well. It is a nice and modest 9:24 p.m. right now. I'm still quite well awake, and I'm very keen for this. I've been pretty kind of a lazy day today, except for reading this very relevant book for this stream, which just arrived today, actually. Astrobiology and Christian Doctrine by an Anglican priest who's unfortunately pro sodomy, but that's another topic. But reading a bit of that and then playing some GTA 5.
Wow, sinner.
I know. I've been doing the virtuous stuff. I've been helping all the ambient NPCs when they
Oh,
have
okay, yeah.
problems.
Driving the speed limit and everything, not crashing into anybody or hijacking
You
cars or
don't
anything
beat
like
up
that,
the
carjacking.
hookers, and you
For,
try
for
to
the
lead
most
them to
part.
Christ.
For the
And
most part.
Do you have to go to confession after you commit sins in GTA?
I've heard. I've actually never played GTA. I've only
No,
seen
that's not
clips
a.
on
I've
it.
actually never played it either. I mean, I'm not. Don't
Mm,
get me wrong. I'm not against I'm not against a good M-rated game. I mean, I play Resident Evil. I play all the horror sci-fi type stuff. I love that stuff. But I've just never gotten into GTA. I don't think I've ever even played it ever. Anyway, we haven't
that's-
come here to discuss GTA. We came here to discuss the lizard overlords. No, the the aliens, the possible aliens. So for those who are, just to sort of catch up to speed to everyone who anyone who might be watching, there was a recent release of some images, video, information, and such from the United States government at the request of Donald Trump, the president, and this batch is the first of many, we're told. And the first batch is there are some interesting things, but it's not like you're not going to see a Martian like up close in high definition, back doing backflips or whatever. You know, um,
it's over.
so uh, this brings us to the sort of perennial question about, are there aliens? Are they demons? Are they angels? Are they flesh and blood, just mundane, I guess you could say stellar creatures who just sort of have their own civilizations? Is it all a hoax? What do we think about all this? And we're going to go over some of the pictures, but I want to focus upon the theology of it because that's this is a theology channel, so that's what I care most about. What does this mean for the Christian faith? And let me sort of show the parameters here. I've last night I was listening to a few different videos. One from Ross Coulthart, who is an Australian um, guy connected with News Nation. He's a reporter, and he does a lot of this UFO stuff. He's got always very interesting interviews, and he talked with a lot of people about this. Uh, and I listened to some others. A Christian one, I think it was Jonathan Harris, brought on a guy from like Creation Museum or something like that. And there are these sort of like two extremes, which is one, there is alien life and is going to sort of like basically abolish all religion because God doesn't exist anymore, obviously, because aliens exist, which is a really weird position to take. um and then there's the whole, it's nothing or demons or anything like that. And I say extreme, I don't because I know one of us at least might hold to this position, so I don't want this to sound like I'm saying it's an irrational position, but that's sort of like the fence, the fence posts on either side. But those are the two on the on one side or the other, and then you've got other parts within the middle. I hold more to a middling position. And does anyone want to add to what I've just said right there?
Yeah, there's variations. I guess the thing I would want to mention, so I kind of hold, I guess I first got shaped by this by encountering Hugh Ross a long time ago
Mm,
and talking about this, and I went to the sources he kind of used, which were John Keel, but primarily Jacques Vallée. Like anyone in the UFO space or does research is heavily indebted to Jacques Vallée. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I've never been good with French, but the only French words I know how to pronounce involve craft beer or something. But the
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
um, so he's the guy who was uh if you have ever watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind by Steven
yeah,
Spielberg,
I know. Yeah,
yeah, so
the French guy.
the French guy is modeled after him.
Mhm.
So he's done amazing research. He has a really significant book that I have a video on my channel that relies on him and John Keel a lot. Uh, his book is called Passport to Magonia, and a lot of UFO encounters are, you know, I can get into this, but grounded in like older mythology and like fairy faith and that sort of stuff. And John Keel kind of connects a lot of stuff to kind of uh, maybe I would say spiritual entities, which is kind of the view I hold. But like Hugh Ross makes a very good distinction, which is that UFO is kind of an umbrella term, so
Mhm.
you don't want to chalk everything up to one thing. So, and
Mm.
I would put this phenomenon in kind of the broader paranormal field. And the one thing you kind of find is there's a mixture in the paranormal of uh, the true and the genuine phenomenon and fake phenomenon and things in between. So anybody can like latch on to the fake and say it's all bogus, and anybody can latch on to the real and say no, it's all real. Um, so if you say UFO, that can be everything from swamp gas to an airplane you didn't identify to a military plane, like secret technology from the like a test flight from the military, all the way up to like hypothetically aliens from another galaxy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and everything in between. So you can't just label so, and I think the distinction that Hugh Ross makes, which is good, is usually when we talk about UFOs, we're talking about residual stuff that legitimately you can't explain. Like you can't explain it
Mhm.
due to like some aircraft or something else that. So you have to kind of bury down into what you actually want to talk about. And usually,
Mm.
what
Yep.
people want to talk about are different types of encounters and legitimately unexplained stuff. Um,
Yep.
the weird stuff, not the
Mm.
oh well that's really like a hot air balloon or something like that. So
Yeah.
Yep. And
90% of the UFO, UAP, whatever you want to call them, uh, is going to be not, actually, like, is explainable, basically.
yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted to quickly say for like most of when Jeff was talking, for most of it from the start, and then for a certain point it was good, but then it went back after that. Your camera was frozen again, Father James. So I just wanted to just in case you wanted to look that up. Your voice was
Okay.
fine, but your camera's frozen again.
yeah,
So if you want to look
you're
into that
moving now.
sometime. You're moving. Okay,
Yeah.
now you're frozen again. Oh, now you're good.
As long as we
Yeah,
can hear you.
I
yeah.
forgot. I brought my uh laptop with me. I forgot to connect the Ethernet. So I'm on Wi-Fi
Okay.
right now. That might be why. All right, just give me a second. Go ahead and talk.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I was gonna say, mate, I don't know if Father James can still hear us, but like, while you were talking, Jeff, as well, like his face was frozen, like, on just a frown like this, like just looking at the camera.
I
When
yeah, I
you
was trying
said
not
when you said the I only know like French beers, and he laughed in his voice. He laughed, but his face was just so that was kind of funny. But I guess in terms of giving my perspective, I'm pretty sure it's similar-ish to my position from when we first did this a few years ago. But I think I've grown, shall we say, a little more radical. Whereas back then I was a bit more apprehensive about the certainty about the possibility of certain things, of what God could do, what could be logically sound, but still constrained and possible within like an orthodox Christology, for example. That's the key thing. Now I've grown a lot more certain, still not totally 100%. I want to read, I'm doing some more reading still, including objections on like a Christological basis for certain things. But TLDR, I hold the possibility of everything from just certain encounters, absolute hoaxes, total BS, or they have a human origin, up to demonic activity, totally possible, possibly even certain incidents I'm aware of, which are probably demonic in origin, or preternatural for a distinction as well. And for those who don't know, preternatural refers to non-material entities which are not fully supernatural. They're beyond the material, but they're still bound to the material world in some sense. So
like Bigfoot.
Exactly like Bigfoot. It's either bound to some kind of material existence, or often like a particular material location. So that could be classic things like, oh, there's a ghost that haunts this mansion. So like a spiritual or supernatural non-material entity like a ghost that haunts a mansion. That's 101 preternatural. So it's not material, but it's still bound to nature some way. So it could be those things all the way up to, whereas obviously in my OG Pentecostal naive Christian years, I thought, oh no, aliens, that'd be bad. That would totally destroy the Christian faith. Over time, giving it thought, I was like, no, I think it could be reconciled to, like, today I'm just like, oh yeah. There's multiple kinds of scenarios where we discover ET, and it's like, and either it's totally fine with the Christian faith, nothing changes, except, well, we may have to just revisit certain understandings of doctrine, or it actually even vindicates the faith. Again, it will depend on certain scenarios. The one scenario I still find where it would at minimum bring a lot of questions on the faith would be, we find fully human analogous alien civilizations, we come into contact with them, and they are like us in that there's a mix of good but also a mix of bad. They have sinful inclinations like crime, violence, this, that, and the other, even if it's still a generally ordered society. And then we ask them about, hey, did the Savior come to you guys as well? And they're like, what Savior? And then they have no conception of anything close to God sending down a representative to bring them out of their sins. If they have nothing like that, then in that scenario, I'd be like, okay, at minimum, that would cause me to ask some questions about the faith in that specific scenario. But you're edging to say something, Father James.
Yeah, that is something I was anticipating, and I've got a response to that. But I want to first, before we get into that, I want to at least show the audience some of the images, and then
before you do that too, I just want to. I got one couple other points to do as well. The other possibilities I hold is either something like.
We were going to go over all the possibilities too, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, just to map out my position on the issue as we were doing. Either so there's that. Then there's also the possibility that they're Edenic worlds, like with right here, actually, C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, something like that. Or the ideal scenario is we find them, they're kind of fallen like us, but then we come to learn and we tell them about our religions and this and that and the other. And at least we tell them about Christianity, and we believe our Lord and Savior came down, incarnated in man, died and rose again for our sins. And they're like, oh yeah, we have that too. This guy called Gorfulthok, he did that for us. Then I'd look at that and I'd just be pogging all day like, Christianity vindicated, let's go. Of course, that would then come to the question of, okay, we have possibly multiple incarnations here. We're going to have to revisit our Christology a bit here. Not that it necessarily contradicts Chalcedonian Christology. Actually, this book right here, which I recommend to people, I'm just going through it right now, it has multiple chapters of a sustained argument for the possibility of multiple incarnations. And I'm wanting to explore that, not that I'm fully sold on it, but I want to explore that case. And he does it specifically from Thomistic principles. So that's the really interesting part of this book. It's a Thomist case for extraterrestrials and Jesus coming to them. So that's my position overall.
The other thing I want to riff off of something Paul said. So that's interesting and definitely something I think we should talk about. But I think probably the thing that might come out the most, because I mean, you've even heard Vice President Vance think, yeah, like it really depends on your worldview based on the data he's seen. And I tend to think they're demonic or something. And there's like a what's been known as the Collins elite, which have for decades believed these entities are demonic and that sort of thing. And there's other, I don't want to get into like everything because I don't know everything they know. And there's a lot of good questions. So if you come to like my position that they're spiritual in some way, you have like, well, how does the spiritual interact with the physical world? And also, I think for most Christians, the taxonomy is angels, demons, God in the spiritual realm. And the taxonomy might be way more interesting and way more complex than, say, what I held to, say, 5 years ago. Where I was saying like, okay, I interviewed somebody on Bigfoot. And at the time I was saying like, okay, a lot of this is demonic. Maybe some of it was, but well, now I'm thinking like kind of what Paul was saying with preternatural, like there could be beings out there that are in this kind of like liminal space or they're kind of cross boundaries and they're not quite demonic. They're not quite angelic. And I have no idea what's going on and might, so that sort of thing. Or all of this could exist in this space.
All right. I want to go into the images right now. I'll show a few. Again, these are not like the most amazing images that have even just ever come out or whatever.
Sure.
But there are some really interesting ones. I'm going to take first the one that I find most interesting. Well, there are two that are kind of tied. But this one is definitely one of the most interesting to me. This is, again, difficult to see. Can I zoom on this at all? Unfortunately. All right. I will provide a link for this, but you can look it up on war.gov/UFO. And you will see at the very bottom, actually, I can do it this way. I'll just take us out for a second. Sorry. At the very bottom, right above that long horizontal line, that blacked out line, you'll see what looks like a star. And it is quite interesting how, like, I've seen video of this too. In fact, I don't know if there's any video of these. I don't remember seeing it on the website.
Of the wheel. I've got the video here.
Okay, yeah. Send me the link and I'll provide it.
Too easy. All right, I'll send it in the private chat. So that's the page with the video itself. It has it on like one of those simple embedded video things.
Is that the wheel thing or
awesome.
It's the wheel one, yep. And for the first bit, it starts out quite a bit zoomed out. But if you just, so you can look at that to start with if you want, or we can just play the whole thing and just comment live. But eventually it zooms in really close. Like the zoomed in pictures you see, those aren't blow ups. It actually does zoom in that close.
So for the one you're trying to show, James, is that the one that looks like a star or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. This one is really fascinating.
It is, yeah.
And I'll let you do it. And
yeah. So yeah, it looks like a star. You see that? It gets closer.
It's
right there. You see on the bottom. Yeah.
Yep. Literally Ezekiel's wheels just trolling pilots for the love of the game. That's what I commented on the
look at that. Now you'll notice that there is heat coming out. There's a
trail behind it
coming out. Yeah, a trail behind it. Yeah, and at one point there's what looks like, I think, a parachute or something that I don't know if it had much to do with it, but like it very clearly looks like a star. It's just, I mean, look at the detail there. It's
Yeah.
really fascinating.
So the interesting thing about this is that, and again, with paranormal stuff, this is very common. If anybody's interested
Mhm.
and wants a very look
There's
at
the
parachute.
parachute.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's a really anytime you get into paranormal stuff, probably the resource I've learned to help kind of adjudicate stuff is a book called The Trickster and the Paranormal. Very dry, but very good. Um, so essentially, that's the one where I mentioned that the fake and the genuine kind of
Mhm.
coincide a lot, and also one of the other things is that there in this, uh, uh, it people can look at this from one side and say, "Oh, well, it's some camera pattern thing going on," and other people are like, "Hey, look, that's obviously like a weird star pattern."
It's an object. It's literally an object there. Like you can see it leaving a trail, a white trail behind it, which could give a clue on what kind of
Yeah,
thing it
and this
is.
is why it's hard to adjudicate because you don't know what that is, if it's like some government, some experimental thing. But again, if it was an experimental thing, why would it be in this file? But
Yeah, and the thing with the parachute when I saw it, if you looked at it, it actually went exactly opposite with the motion of the star. So if this is the star and this is the parachute shape, it was like that. It was like that with the camera, which to me communicates that the parachute thing, it looks like some kind of optical effect of the object on the camera, some kind of flare or whatever. And I think this is infrared footage. So I'm going to look up quickly what the black color indicates in terms of infrared footage.
Mhm.
well, I think that means
Um,
it's not giving off heat, right? Like that's why the trails, if you have exhaust or something, that should be more light colored.
Sorry, I think it's thermal footage. Thermal grayscale
so,
footage.
yeah, I find this one interesting because obviously the shape and everything about it. There are some challenges that people are making. Let me go ahead and uh, first I gotta show this with John the Baptist. We're gonna need
Real,
a new TR translation for the aliens. Yes, amen.
real.
Actually, no, we'll just give them the King James. Just keep the King James. They got it. They're smart. Um,
King James has its,
let's see.
I'll figure it out.
it's,
That assuming they don't have
Um,
their own scriptures, which
First, let me bring this up. These alleged UFOs are just government psyops. Don't let it distract you from more important matters. I would disagree. Um,
yeah.
I would say that I I I would need evidence. I don't take on faith claims of like, oh, this is just a government psyop. I'm going to need evidence for that sort of thing.
Well,
Uh, I I think a healthy
yeah.
skepticism includes claims from the internet. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to
Mm.
what is his name, Ministerios
Miss-
Emmanuel.
some-
Um,
what I would
I
say,
don't just take for granted. I don't think it's more like I'm not a big fan of the idea of just like completely writing everything off as a psyop.
yeah.
I don't like that. Yeah.
What I would say is, on the one hand, the footage and stuff they're giving is quote unquote real in the sense that it's real stuff the government collected. They thought it was weird, possibly dangerous, possibly a threat, so they collected it as files for research, whatever, kept it under wraps, and then the government decided to release it. It's real in that sense, but I would actually agree that given the political climate with stuff right now, where the Trump admin, they're not doing too crash hot in terms of popularity, and there's been certain scandalous things, like whatever your position on the issues with to do with the Iran war and certain other things like that. I do genuinely think this release was just like, quick, throw them the bone, distract them. I do think it was absolutely a distraction, but that's a separate question from, okay, what do we make of these materials themselves?
I mean, this UFO
Mhm.
stuff has been around for decades, and for
Yep.
I mean, I feel weird because I'm 50 years old, and being a young guy in the 90s, at the time, if this stuff came out in the 90s, it would have been much bigger deal.
Oh yeah,
And for
huge.
years, everybody was like, the government's hiding stuff, the government's hiding stuff, the government's hiding stuff. And then I started, preparing for, because, they were thinking about doing releases 5 or 6 years ago, which is why I studied and kind of did my main UFO video on my channel, like I guess in 2001 or so, kind of preparing for those releases, and which kind of never, just they released a little bit, but not enough. And then, so from it to being a government cover up to a government psyop, it's like what? Like, come on, man. Like, no offense
Yeah.
to the gentleman, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, Paul makes a good point. Like, maybe the timing of release
Yeah.
might have
Oh, I
something.
won't deny that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just quickly, I found something.
It might be.
Something really quick I found is that there is actually a setting. Apparently, it is preferred for US military use, an infrared setting called black hot, where heat is actually represented with black. So the darker something is, the hotter it is. So actually, this object is quite hot, and that would actually give credence on one part I have with it, because if you look at the footage, you can notice the spikes. They're not solid. They're kind of they kind of look porous, or not porous, like gaseous, basically, kind of like streams of like jet or gas just pushing out, which I speculated briefly as being like possibly like corrective directional things for its movement. But then again, they don't increase or decrease with movement, so maybe not. But it's hot. It's actually a hot object.
Yeah. Internet Enjoyer, if you could give me a link for something that shows that it was debunked, that would be interesting to me. I appreciate it. I'm not a big fan of the whole, you know, when things were not being released, as you were saying, Jeff, oh, the government's hiding it. Then suddenly, now that the government is releasing it, it's, the other way. It's like, nope, it's a psyop. It's all fake. It's, none of it's real. I'm like, okay, can we not? I'm not saying we need to love the government and like believe and bow down to everything that they say, but could we not just can we refrain from taking just the opposite position of, or like the most cynical position, I should say,
Cynical,
of like anything that the government does? Yeah, it's just like, let's at least go through the data. I'm not even going to deny that almost certainly this is stuff to help him politically, to distract from issues concerning the Strait of Hormuz and Iran and all that stuff, or maybe even Epstein. Sure, we'll go with that. But like that doesn't deny that these are actual things. It's not like Donald Trump decades ago planted these things into the government secret files so that one day he could release this for his war with Iran, his and Bibi Netanyahu's war with Iran.
Here's the plan. We're gonna plant the footage. Big, beautiful black star, big star, very scary, beautiful stuff, and it's gonna defend my plan to help out Bibi, big, beautiful Bibi, my master.
That I think that's one of the best representatives of the stuff that we have. Is there anything that you guys wanted to focus on real quick? One other one that I really liked was the moon stuff, about the moon.
Yeah, I was
I'd
going
like
to
to
say
see
a
that.
lot
I'd
of
love to
people,
see
I think on Twitter or X or whatever, want to say like, oh, this was a dot. It's like you're so video focused that you're not eyewitness account focused. We have Apollo astronauts talking about stuff, like, and you're focused on like a video, because it's like, if it's not video, it's not real.
Yeah.
Or something like that, like, stuff from the 60s or that.
Yeah.
We have accounts of UFOs going back to ancient times. We have stuff in medieval Japan. We have stuff from ancient Rome. Okay. There's
one of the Caesars, I think it was one, or no, it was Alexander the Conqueror, I think, if I recall correctly, is talking about flying human shields, as one example. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's stuff. There's all sorts of stuff, and it depends how you define UFO, right? It's like, so a lot of stuff is, one of the reasons why I view a lot of this activity as demonic is because once, especially starting in the 19th century, when people become more materialistic, the activity approaches people in a more materialistic way, where it's like, oh, now this is like a dirigible. Now this is like a jet airplane, 40, 50 years before jet airplanes were a thing, or that sort of thing. It kind of is like a lot of times in the paranormal, like I think these entities, there's like a trickster paradigm where they kind of meet your expectations. So I think prior to like the 19th century and before, you have things that are just things and weird, which I guess we would classify as UFOs or in the space, but it's like pre-rationalism, pre all this stuff, and they're just seeing weird things and that sort of thing. Starting kind of like World War II and later, everything's like sci-fi, like, oh, I'm from Venus, and then now that then once we learn Venus is uninhabitable, then oh, I'm from Mars, and now I'm from Jupiter, now I'm from this star system or something like that. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, like I think for this tranche of data or whatever, I think I definitely want to see how much read what the Apollo astronauts were saying. Like, oh, I saw something. I'm like, those guys were really heavily vetted. Okay, those Apollo astronauts, they were like the cream of the crop of the experimental fighter test pilots and World War II heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah, let's get into this clip right here, or this image right here. So you'll see in the square, and that's about as much as I can get with it. Let's see.
Could you send the link to that
this
one?
Is from.
So I can...
Yeah. 1 second. It is on just the what I've been doing is going on the UFO side.
I am the two. Yeah, it's just hard to navigate because I have a lot of.
It
things.
is. Did I just lose it? Okay, there it is. Nope, not that one. That one, by the way, is very obviously, it's an image that was recreated. That's not a, like, that would not be an actual.
It looks like an album from the 70s or something.
That one, it was a recreation. So I don't want people to see that image and be like, oh, look at this. That was completely fake, obviously. Like, well, yeah.
You mean to tell me those super magnets I got from Questacon in Canberra are actually miniature alien spacecraft? Let's go.
All right. So the reason this one is so interesting to me is that this is again from the astronauts themselves on the moon, and this is when we do not have satellites anywhere close to like there, so these cannot be man-made, and these are lights that they were seeing. They were not stars, they were not planets or anything like that. These were actual lights that they were seeing. So, in the Earth's atmosphere, you can have all sorts of different possible explanations. Even something as silly as like light refracting from a weather balloon or whatever, When you're out on the moon, it's like hearing an explosion on the moon,
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think you can hear.
And I will say,
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And I will also add to this. Actually, at first I was like, okay, come on, this one's a bit of a stretch. But then I immediately remembered I'm like a semi-amateur photographer / videographer now, because with my videos I use like a proper camera, so I have to do stuff like shutter speed, exposure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I've at least got a working knowledge in that stuff. And what we do know is that with the moon, the reason why, for example, we don't see on the moon footage, we can see the moon just fine, but not the stars, is because the shutter speed is extremely fast. So the shutter speed being how long the gate for actually capturing the light is open for. So, and so that was needed because a slower shutter speed would basically, if it was to reveal the stars and all that, would basically just blow out the exposure on the moon's surface because of how reflective it is of sunlight. So we would see the stars, but then it would just be like this white blob basically everywhere. So they had to
Yeah.
bring that shutter speed really high. I was about to say down, but it's actually really high to allow for that. So in light of that, it's actually really significant that on the one hand, the shutter speed is way too high to see any stars in the background, and yet still we still have these tiny little lights captured in
That's
that
the
image,
point.
which must mean they're extremely bright.
Oh yeah. So it looks very faint here, but with the image, I mean, I got it away now, but it's actually far brighter than what you can sort of tell
Yeah.
from the image.
Do they have
Let me
text
go ahead and
showing
get
the
to.
actual account of Buzz Aldrin or whatever astronauts saw it?
I think there's a Neil Armstrong account I heard. I haven't read it yet, and I think there's an Apollo 17 account.
There is.
Maybe.
I've listened and heard. I don't know if I want to spend the time. If one of you wants to look through and see it, see if it's there, or I can right
I'm
now.
looking it up right now.
Yeah, because I know there is audio of them talking about it because I've heard it. But let me go ahead and go over some of these comments right now. We'll get to it in a
Okay,
bit.
so there's a transcript. There's a transcript. I've got it.
Okay, we'll get to it in a second. Let me just get through some of these at least. I will say that if aliens, as in corporeal, non-angelic, non-demonic, sapient beings exist, it does pose challenges to normative Christian orthodoxy, which is quite humanocentric given the incarnation. I disagree, and I will we'll talk about that in a bit. Um, why would Christ incarnate specifically as a human and not as an alien? Is a first question about it to ask. I have an answer for that. We're already did that one, John. Let's see. Uh, Obviously, if there's a Christ analog figure for the aliens, that would be fascinating. I agree, 100%. These alleged UFOs are. We already went to that one. Um, let's see. There's Shadow of the Parachute.
Yeah, I would say for the
See.
debunked comment, like I think there's enough there where you're like, I'm at least going to say that's not determinative. That it's like with the parachute and stuff like that. I don't. It's hard to say what's going on unless you can
Mhm.
positively identify it. So I would just, I'm keeping an open mind, filing it away, but I don't know if.
Mhm.
All right, so this
Um,
is the eyewitness
yeah,
Apollo testimony, one
yeah.
of the Apollos.
Let me finish these last three real quick, and then we'll get to that. They could have easily filmed this stuff with normal cameras. The whole infrared stuff is just to sell it to us. I disagree. I mean, part of the point is we're not taking, the military is not taking pictures of this in uh, with like their smartphones. I mean, sometimes actually that is actually happening, but these are meant to actually detect through heat signatures and through a variety of other things, uh, enemy ships or whatever. So that's why they are done in things like infrared or whatever. Um, let's see. Seeing the sail as you guys did is basically the debunking. I was astounded at this at first, but then it's like, okay, it has a trail. It is hot. Looks like a sail with it. I don't see how that debunks it, honestly. Um, I, I,
Yeah,
yeah. If any of you
but
want
at
to
the
add
same
anything
time,
about
I
that,
wouldn't call it like, oh, this is definite proof of
oh no, no,
a
yeah,
weird UFO thing. It's just like, okay, this
yeah.
is weird, and yeah,
Mm. All right, so let's go ahead and go over the thing here.
They've helpfully
Let's go
highlighted the
through it.
relevant statements in the transcript that are relevant to the UFO stuff. So you
Okay,
can
okay,
just go through
awesome.
it.
So yeah, I'll let people read it as they want to. Now we've got a very few bright particles or fragments or something that go drifting by as we maneuver. Roger, understood or understand. There's a whole bunch. I think that's bunch of big ones on my window down there, just bright. It looks like the 4th of July out of Ron's window. Yes, now you can see some of them in shape. They're very jagged, angular fragments that are tumbling. Roger, they look like fluid of some sort? Question. Not to me. They look like pieces of something. Roger, they're very bright. Jack, we'd like Omni Charlie. Bob, for the most part, these fragments are not, or are tumbling at a very slow rate. I tried a couple of pictures of them, different settings. You may get an idea of what, at least, the patterns look like. Roger, I've got you. We're all ears on these fragments. Do you think you can figure out what they might be? Well, I don't know. there are a number of possibilities. If you had some kind of I got the impression maybe they were curved a little bit, as if they might be off the side of the SIVB, and that's a wild guess. Okay, RCS logic is ice chunks, possibly, or maybe there's paint coming off of it. Roger, I noticed on one trip up the elevator last week near one of the flags, I thought it was on the S2, but it might have been on the I guess it's S4B. Looks like it was peeling. Maybe that's what you've got.
I'll pause you
And the
quickly so I can look
S4B,
it up. Because the SIVB, for context, is actually a rocket stage for the rockets to actually get to the moon. So they're speculating maybe it's pieces of that are just flying by.
yeah. And the SIVB maneuver is complete. In 1 minute. Okay, we'll set the old clock. Okay, and with the maneuver complete, the fragment field is essentially static, except for very slight tumbling within the fragments. Roger, cut in. Every once in a while, a fragment of considerably higher velocity than the others goes across my window, but that's very rare. Roger, hey, that's that field of view I saw out my window. Jack, do you see it now? Yes. And Bob, at least there's no apparent relative motion between fragments. Roger, understand. I'll take 2 pictures about a minute apart if I can, and it'll be frame 70. Okay, frame 70. And Bob, this is Gino. My impression is that they are flat, flake-like particles. Some may be 6 inches across, and although there's no relative motion between the two, most of them seem to be twinkling, and I think, for the most part, they're all moving away from us. And that's the end. Oh, hear more. Okay, to add today, not last night, but I guess the first night I was in bed, I definitely saw some of these because I had a hard time going to bed. This is a bit later. Maybe a few days later or a few hours later. I guess the first night I was in bed, I definitely saw some of these because I had a hard time going to bed to start with. I saw some of the same peripheral horizon type things you said were not the type of data you were looking for. But I also saw some sets of the streaks. And probably the one most imposing thing I remember is, and the last one I remember before falling asleep, was the fact that there was a very bright spot that flashed right between my eyes like a very bright headlight, like a train coming at you, only with a flash. It's different, probably, to estimate the frequency of any of those because I was in a sort of sleep hazy mode. Roger. But then, as today, I saw some that flashed and lit up the horizon and saw that some lit up peripherally. And I guess, as you say, that's a different kind of data, but I did see them there and they impressed me. And it might be interesting to know I've never seen it before today. Later on, and then when you don't have anything else to do, why don't you have somebody predict where the SIVB is? I think I've got her spotted behind us and above us with respect to the Earth and our travel from it. Hey Bob, I'm looking at what Jack was talking about, and it's definitely not a particle that's nearby because there's another one I can look at. Or let me rephrase that. It's definitely not a particle that's nearby because there is another one I can look at and get a three-dimensional comparison with. It is a bright object, and it's obviously rotating because it's flashing. It's way out in the distance, as I say, because there are particles that are close by, and it's obviously not one of those. It's apparently rotating in a very rhythmic fashion because the flashes come around almost on time. And it's as we look back at the Earth. It's up at 11 o'clock, about, maybe 10 or 12 Earth diameters. I don't know where that does you any good, but there's something out there. Okay, and I just want to emphasize that it's definitely not one of these particles that tends to look like a star out there. It's something physical in the distance. Laughter. Oh yes. Okay, I'm looking at it out the center window, the hatch window, and I'll give you a hack when it crosses the XX axis at the center window. And I guess it's up maybe 45 degrees. Well, let's call it the XZ plane of the spacecraft. One unique thing about it, Bob, is that it's got two flashes. As it comes around in rhythmic fashion, you get a very bright flash, and then you get a dull flash. And then it'll come around with a bright flash and then a dull flash. Bob, a couple of revolutions ago, when I was looking at it, I had a much brighter view, and I believe I was looking at it broadside. It looks to me like it may be flashing more or less end on now. It's much not as bright, although it's getting brighter, but it's not as bright now as it was a while ago. We've been noticing that, I think, for about 24 hours or so. I just hadn't put it together as maybe being the SIVB. I thought it was just some other particle out there.
Can
I
I
think
mention
that,
something before you continue? The
yeah,
the flashing is a really a hallmark of UFO events. Like that's a very common feature is to have something that's spinning and flashing with multiple colors. Just throwing it out there.
all right.
Yeah.
There are
The
not
next
very many
paragraph.
paragraphs left. Go ahead, go ahead.
No,
What
you
were you
can read.
saying?
I was just going to talk about what this was going to be. You can go.
All right. Hey Bob, we got two of those flashers out there. They could be SLA panels. I don't know. They're like in intensity and pretty regular in the intensity, bright and dim flashes they come out with, and they're widely separated. One is about the position we called at the first time. The other one is, oh, as I'm looking at the Earth, far to the left, closer to the center window now. And then finally, the last section here. Hey, I just saw a flash on the lunar surface. Oh yeah? It was just out there north of Grimaldi, just north of Grimaldi. You might see if you got anything on your seismometers, although a small impact probably would give a fair amount of visible light. Okay, we'll check. It was a bright light. It was a bright little flash right out there near that crater. See the crater right at the edge of the Grimaldi. Then there is another one north of it. Fairly sharp. One north of it is where there was just a thin streak of light. How about putting an X on the map where you saw it? I keep looking occasionally for, yes, we will. I was planning on looking for those kind of things. Starting to see the edge of Orientale, Gordy, way off to the west. Hey, just yell, Gene, anytime you. And then let me just read this last part. Gordy, to the north of Grimaldi, there is a large basin that is about the same size, but only incompletely filled with mare in its northeastern quadrant. The rest of it looks like a fairly irregular and hummocky floor material of some kind. Roger. And that's the end of the transcript. That was a lot of reading, but if you'll notice, it's constantly a presumption of a more natural, mundane phenomenon.
Yeah,
Anyway,
literally like pieces
go
of the
ahead.
spacecraft, basically pieces of prior stages of the craft somehow coming into their view. I don't think, from at least from the bits we read, maybe in between bits they said something else, but I think they were trying to find out. Hey, let's predict where the SIVB would be to confirm if these particles are part of it or not. It doesn't seem like it was resolved in these bits of the transcript.
I think that's the appropriate way to, the previous distinction I made between residual UFOs is that you try to figure out natural causes first.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
like, is there a plane or what planes are around? What's this? What's that? You don't just see a random light and just immediately go, that's a UFO or
Yeah.
Or
you know that
it's aliens specifically, yeah, because anything
or,
unidentified.
or whatever the causes are, whatever we attribute the UFOs to, whether it's aliens, demons, something in between, both, whatever. Like
Mhm.
we're interested in the unexplained stuff, not just that you saw something and you couldn't
Mhm.
identify it. So the process would be try to figure out like something normal, and then even like so say with the star one we have, it's like
Mhm.
okay, there's a parachute looking thing and this, and there's a there's an exhaust trail. What you would be more
Mhm.
interested in is if there's UFO instances where there's no exhaust trail. There's very
Mhm.
little physical effect. Things are turning in rapid speeds. That was from the things that were released like 5 years ago or so.
Yeah. The tic
That
tac and
sort
all
of
that. Yeah.
stuff is what you're more interested in,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. For this, so they're going through that process, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just what you do. Yeah.
Um, I want to go ahead and go over some of the options for Christians uh, uh, that we have available for this. I want to say one of the videos I did watch was with Jonathan Harris, with a guy from Creation Museum or something like that, and it was a bit unfortunate because I mean, no disparage or dislike for either of these guys, but the guy that Jonathan brought on, he does the YouTube channel Conversations That Matter. The guy literally said, "If I found out aliens exist, I would throw my Bible away." And I was just like,
Yeah.
"I
Was that Gary Bates?
yes, yes,
Yeah, I remember watching an interview from him years ago, and he said exactly that same thing. So it seems to be something of a like a basically a trope or a repeat core line of his, which
yeah,
is unfortunate, as you say.
Can I
yeah,
disparage certain segments of? I'm not like anti young Earth creationism, even though I'm an old
mhm,
Earther. Um,
mhm,
to me, especially like the groups that specifically do a lot of young Earth creationism things, I'm not. Again, I'm not against the young Earth position. I've held to the young Earth
yeah,
position in the
yeah,
past or whatever, but there
yeah,
seems to be a lot of too much rigidity, not enough flexibility. Where you don't want to be so flexible where it's like, hey, whatever, and nothing disproves my
Yeah,
faith.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But at the same time, if you get new data and you're like, oh, it's like the opposite of Bart Ehrman, where Bart
yeah,
Ehrman like runs into some stuff that's a little weird that goes against his like. I don't want to use the term fundamentalist because it's a pejorative term that means like
naive
yeah,
evangelicalism, perhaps.
yeah, well, fundamentalists. What I've learned, like I studied Islam like prior to 5 years prior to 9/11 in college, and my
mhm,
college professor, who I think he was married to a Coptic Christian or whatever, he made a very good point. Was that when you use the term fundamentalist, you're basically trying to marginalize the person, and whether it's in the Muslim uh, sphere
Context.
or the Christian sphere or whatever. You're just trying to kind of say they're wacky. But so I don't want to say that, but there is like a rigidity in what we normally call fundamentalism, where
To be fair, if I give a little pushback real quick on that, I grew up fundamentalist.
oh,
Fundamentalists love that term for themselves. Oftentimes,
okay,
we positively self-identified as fundamentalist. Anyway, so sorry. Go ahead.
okay, so it's kind of like what I say was like a flip side of the coin. Where one of my viewers labeled it because I analyzed it in with Catholic converts as the safety net syndrome, and and this is how it shows up a lot of times in kind of say Protestant circles, where it's like, okay, something doesn't fit. Instead of adjusting something or being like, life's a little messy or whatever, it's like it's either my very specific interpretation of Genesis and what that entails, or I abandon like everything. I don't. There's
Mhm.
no room for adjustments at all. And again, this is not anti young Earth creationism, but there is kind of a mindset uh, among those circles, especially the people who do the reasons, not reasons to believe, they're the old Earth group, but the answers in
Answers in
Genesis
Genesis.
and
Yeah,
those sort of groups where it's like, look,
yeah,
man, like if you found alien life, like that doesn't you don't necessarily it depends. Like, I mean, I don't want to say like nothing
yeah.
will ever can a priori
Yeah,
not
yeah,
disprove Christianity, but
mm,
I do believe it's true. So it's hard for me to come
yeah,
up with a scenario, but like uh and you do have to allow for deception in these realms, and I do agree
yeah,
a lot of it's demonic, so I kind of am agreeing with them, but at the same time, like I don't want to agree with them in that like it's just like the reason why I've come to my conclusion that it's a lot of this is demonic based on an examination of the phenomenon,
Yeah.
where I feel like there a lot of these people might be coming to that conclusion because it upsets their paradigm.
Yeah, you agree with them in fact, but you disagree with them in principle.
Yeah, well, it's just like it's like they have a very like rigid like I keep saying rigidity, but it's like
It is rigid. It is quite rigid.
it's very inflexible to new data, right?
Yeah.
And for that reason, it has to be demonic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense for their paradigm, and that's kind of what I'm saying.
Well, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I'm curious because if you want to go through the theories, for me, one of those points, which as Jeff rightly mentioned, like we can't just say that every possible scenario of ET would be compatible with Christianity. The one which for me, which is at absolute best, puts a big question mark over the Christian faith, and at worst just throws it out in the bin, would be that scenario I mentioned. And you said you have a response to that, so I'd love to hear it. And just to recap it for people, is the scenario where we find ET, one or more races, we tell them, hey, we have this Christian faith thing, and they're like, yeah, no, we have nothing like that. That would throw a big question for me, for the simple fact of, well, okay, now we know we're not alone in the universe, so God did not create it just for us, and yet he only has come to save us of our sins, despite the fact that there's all these other races out there who are of the same fallen condition in a sense as us, and yet he hasn't come down for them there. Therefore, that would seem to indicate that somehow the historical claims of the Christian faith are just not true. So how would you respond to that, Father James?
Well, I will respond to that once we go through all the options and all that. I just want to make one or two points real quick. So first off, what frustrates me about that claim that I would throw my Bible away if alien life, actual sentient alien life, were found, is that there is, to my knowledge, only one statement where of that kind in Scripture, which is the resurrection itself, from St. Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, where he says basically, like, if the resurrection did not happen, if Christ did not raise from the dead, like the Christian faith is false, right?
Right.
Now that's not the only thing that would disprove the Christian faith. That's not my point. But that's sort of the level that you see within Scripture itself, where the only explicit statement is the resurrection of Christ, and the idea that Martians would debunk the Christian faith is just insane to me. Like, and I was listening to his arguments, and his arguments kind of were vaguely around the idea of, these alleged problems of the incarnation stuff, which I'm not going to say like completely dismiss them. I'm not going to say like, oh, those are no problem whatsoever. But you can't have a little bit of theological exercise done with that. It's just kind of crazy. So I'm not a big fan of that. It comes from a very sort of new to Scripture approach too. I don't know if he was really explicit in that, but it seems like, well, my Bible doesn't tell me that aliens exist, therefore aliens can't exist.
Hey, can you?
That's the nail on the head right there, because with the fundamental hermeneutical problem, that's what I like to focus on from views like that. Including, well, I won't say exactly who, but even in my own family, some who are very dogmatically, no, they must be demons. It can't be actual ET. Is reading the Genesis account and assuming that the specialness, basically reading the Genesis account and assuming the specialness of mankind in that regard is with respect to literally the entire created cosmos, every single world, every single planet, rather than like what is literally clear in Genesis, it's Earth. Like on Earth, God made many animals and God put man at the top. It's literally, it's neither contradicted nor is it ever even address the possibility of the same being the case on other worlds, which is why, and again, I'm going to recommend this book here because he has a whole chapter on this and it's really good on the history of Christian speculation of life on other worlds, both animal-like and even intelligent life. And the interesting thing you find is that in the earliest Christian opponents of the idea that there could be life elsewhere in the universe, most of them from this guy's survey don't oppose it on the grounds of, oh, well, it's because mankind's unique. We're the only ones who could be. Like a handful of early ones do that, but even those ones from memory and reading the chapter, they tend to come a bit later. And these speculations really start in the 15th century, by the way. So really like hundreds of years ago. But most of the objections from Christian thinkers back then, from those who did oppose life on other worlds, and here's the thing, many others were fine with it, but of those who opposed it, they tended to oppose it on scientific grounds, that scientifically, from the science we know today, from like Aristotelian physics and metaphysics, that there couldn't be other worlds other than ours, otherwise they'd come together and basically collide. That was it was literally a scientific case for the most part. It wasn't actually a theological case against it.
Can you?
In fact, St. Thomas Aquinas brings up the idea of like other rational creatures could exist, and he gives which we'll get into with the options. But what you want to bring up?
Can you bring up Johnny from 8:14 a.m. the meta problem one? Yes, thank you. Okay, so again, without like doing a 20-minute like paranormal dump or whatever, this is all a lot. You will find a lot of this. This is, in my opinion, a paranormal phenomenon. So you are going to get genuine stuff. You're going to get fraudsters and everything in between, and any paranormal topic that happens, and you got to kind of like sift through it, or there's going to be enough, as I said earlier, there's going to be enough fake stuff for the people who are more cynical to just write everything off. There's going to be enough genuine stuff for the genuine people. There's definitely UFO cults and UFO, but I highly recommend. So, I mean, I did my video in 2001. Maybe a couple years later, the Cultish podcast did like maybe a 8-part or something UFO podcast series. I forget when exactly or how long it was ago. So maybe 23 or something like that, 24, where it was a really amazing rundown of the history of UFOs, which makes a much better case and more in-depth case than I did, probably because they don't have the same, they could focus on it as part of their jobs or whatever. And there's occultic stuff that is intertwined. Part of the reason why I think this phenomenon is intertwined with the occult and other things. And they do a good job of showing how UFO phenomenon is grounded in like occultic stuff, maybe dating back to the 17th century or and stuff like that. So again, Cultish, let me see if I can find that and I'll put it in the private chat. It just but anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. I am putting in the show notes because I will otherwise forget some of these links right now. So just give me a second. They're saved. All right, they should be there. All right, so let's go ahead and go over some of the different options that we have. I've got this list right here. So the first one is no intelligent alien life exists. That is the sort of normie position, right? That is a possibility. This could all of it be a hoax, misunderstandings, etc., right? So we're all aware of that possibility. I don't think any one of us is outright completely denying that possibility is one. The second one is that alien life does exist, and we have a few different categories for. Well, no, actually, let me do that one last, or that's group of category group last. The next one I want to do is so-called aliens are actually angels and demons and stuff like that. That also is not something I'm going to outright deny. And in fact, I would say that the reality is a mixture of all of these things, like that. Some of it is that hoax, obviously. Some of it is misunderstanding. Some of it is angelic or demonic. And then some of it is probably actual biological alien life forms, right? So that one we would, I think, all safely hold to that it's it could also be spiritual things and all that sort of stuff. Now, we have now different alien life possibilities. So alien life exists, and it is not fallen alien life. That would be Paralandra. That would be Out of the Silent Planet and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Paralandra, Silent Planet, right
Yeah.
here, people.
Yeah. So
I'm just happy we have some phenomenon that we're just not automatically trying to link up with a Lord of the Rings reference.
Yeah, real for once.
Well, hey, I still love Lord of the Rings.
You
anyway,
can, but I just don't think it should be the filter amongst we always
of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is literally Rivendell. This is literally the Valar.
Literally Smeagol. No. So yeah, Unfallen. I think actually, honestly, this is the least likely, but I'm not completely going to dismiss.
I'd agree. I'd agree, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is that the aliens are fallen. Now, if the aliens are fallen, we have a few different options here as well. All right. First one is that Christ's incarnation is enough for all rational creatures. Now, I'm kind of 50-50 on this and the other one, but I kind of lean more towards this on certain days at least. So, if it is the fact that Christ's incarnation, human incarnation, is enough for all rational creatures, I would say that the consequence of that is a higher elevation of humanity as the Imago Dei. And this is actually meant to emphasize our representative, our being ambassadors for God to all of creation. That is our mandate. And we can either think of it as, all of creation being all non-sentient species, the birds and the squirrels and the bears and all that sort of stuff. Or we can see, and I think this makes more sense, that we are representing God to rational creatures that are in the universe. That's why I find that one the most interesting. The other one is that, and I think this is what St. Thomas Aquinas holds to, that the incarnation happens species relevant. So multiple incarnations happen, and this does not, this, obviously God is not limited, so he can do this. And so when you've got I say Martians, obviously I would say almost certainly there are no Martians, but we're just using that for funsies. Let's say the Alpheans from Alpha Centauri. So the Alpheans, right? The Alpheans have a savior who is their Christ, who is the second person of the Trinity. So it's not like a different, being or something, and so they experience a salvation narrative that is adjusted or that is meant for them on that. And let me see, are there any other options I had here? That's it, basically. One other thing that's a bit important that not so much on the theological side, although I guess it could have implications, is that we're not talking about creatures that are from this dimension, that they are either a higher dimensional level, which goes a bit to the preternatural that you were talking about earlier. So that would actually solve issues with like questions of traveling and distance and all that sort of stuff. Although there are other ways that we can get around that as well. But that's just another thing to point out.
Yeah. So wouldn't demon? I always felt, just interrupt. I think.
Yeah.
The interdimensional hypothesis kind of subsumes under it the angelic or demonic stuff or whatever taxonomy of the spiritual realm you want, even if you don't, if that makes sense. Like heaven and other realms can be considered a different dimension in scientific language.
Yeah, but also I would say that would still maintain that there's a distinction between them and angels and demons, That's what this option is bringing out.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
No, fair enough. Again, like Bigfoot.
Yeah. All right. So if you could bring up, Paul, again, your concern that might challenge, and then I'll address it.
Yes. So the concern is with the scenario where we find ET, they're just like us in an analogous way with respect to civilization. They have a sinful nature. There's flaws in their nature and what have you, sin, crime, whatever. But they have nothing sufficiently like our story of a savior coming into their species, assuming their nature, and atoning for their sins in some manner. And so if a species just doesn't have that at all, then that would throw a big question of why are these guys left out, and that could open, at minimum, it could open up the strong possibility that, okay, maybe the Christian faith is just not true.
Yeah,
that just put it straight.
Yeah, well, so it's
a
covenant coming from a Reformed covenant perspective, right? So we're in Adam, and then we're in Christ. So it's hard. It would present some difficulty to figure out how, because Jesus joined by his human nature, like how they would participate in that covenant. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like without new revelation, it would be really hard to kind of know for sure what to do or how to treat it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if they didn't have a Christ narrative or something like that, there are two approaches we can have for this. One is that they are to receive baptism, right? The other one is that they are to not receive baptism. So
Right.
if they are to receive baptism, I don't see this as any different from, well, not any. There are differences. Don't get me wrong, and we'll get to those in a second. But I see this. Yeah, no, they are relevant, but in a different way. The Native Americans, right? The Indians here.
The antipodes, the antipodes thing. That was a big debate in the early church, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, Christ died for them. So, but the difference between that scenario and this possible scenario is that they are descended from Adam, which is something that we need to bring up with this as well. The thing that gives me pause about the one incarnation thing is that there seems to be a strong tie of sin and descendancy from Adam, right?
Yes.
So how do we deal with that? That is something that then makes me go that makes me oscillate back and forth to these multiple incarnation sort of thing. But then if they are to not be baptized, that actually solves a lot of problems. If they don't have the Imago Dei, then they don't have the capacity for immortality, I would say. And so that salvation for them is not in their purview, is not to be given to them, because they don't, they're not going to have the capacity to live forever, even if they live the most virtuous life and sort of follow Christ or whatever, that sort of thing. I would say, well, yeah, that doesn't necessitate that they then get granted immortality. So that would be the other option for that, if that makes sense. Any thoughts or challenges on that?
Definitely some. So couple of things. One, I do genuinely think the baptism for aliens, like if we did find ET and before we knew much about their culture, I would a priori rule out the possibility of them being baptized, them joining the church on Christological grounds. That one, the simple fact that the church is made for man, but two, there's actually theological reasoning behind that. The simplest one being, which Gregory was Gregory Nazianzus or Gregory of Nyssa or Basil, one of the Cappadocian fathers, who basically sums it up as what is not assumed is not redeemed. So Christ assumed a human nature, that alone is redeemed. The Alphaean
I thought that was Athanasius. I thought he said that. Right. All right.
One of them, yeah. So he didn't. So for with respect to Christ specifically, the incarnate Word in the sons of Adam, he didn't assume an Alphaean nature, not a vegan nature, just our nature. So only we're redeemed with respect to the incarnation on our planet. So I think that minimally the baptism of aliens would be ruled out. So that would require some kind of species local mechanism of salvation for them if they are to be saved. Now, in that event, the proposed solution you give is that, well, it means that they're not in the image of God, therefore they're just kind of out there hanging out, and we're actually the sole chosen representatives of God. Now, that would hinge on basically the theology of what is the image of God. And that's where I still have a problem with it, because I believe in Scripture the image of God is most plainly basically shown to be basically our rational and spiritual nature, our ability to contemplate higher things, to act to act like God, to contemplate Him, and all that stuff. And so, if we did hypothetically find an alien race, which, as I said, was analogous to mankind, where they're kind of fallen on one hand, but then we also discover they are engaging with these deeper things. They're reasoning in the universe. They have religion. They have spirituality. Maybe even in some subsections of their civilization, they have religions or cultures which appear to some degree, whether greatly or even just loosely, close to Christian ethics and what have you. And they do think on those levels, and they have practices. They have liturgies. They have spirituality. That would, to me, be beyond all reasonable doubt. Okay, they have this thing which we call the image of God, but if they lack a saving and redemption arc, then that would be a huge problem.
So a few things. Real quick. First, let me. Actually, I'll read that in a second because I don't want to lose track of what I'm thinking of. First, would you say the angels have the Imago Dei?
I haven't given that any thought really much, actually. So, a good question.
I would say probably not.
Probably not, because because they're basically, actually, no, I have kind of thought about this, but more indirectly, they're basically superpowered NPCs. Basically, they don't have the discursive will like we do.
Yeah. So my point is that they still worship, and it is genuine worship. I'm going through Revelation at my church right now, and so we see those sorts of things happening. Yet they do not have the Imago Dei. I would say that a necessary component of the Imago Dei is what you placed here, what you set forth about the rational and spiritual and all that sort of stuff. But it is not sufficient. I would say necessarily. I would say it's necessary but not sufficient. Anyway, Jeff, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, my dog decided to bark with some other dog barks, so I put mute for a second. Two things. The first thing would be is if something came down, because there's a problem, because let's say instead of demons, let's say evil spiritual entities aren't known for their truthfulness. That throws another wrinkle into this topic, in terms of, like, if you just have like one spaceship. Are you Father James, are you old enough to remember the what was it, the V miniseries in the like 84 or 83?
No, it's before I was born.
There's the 2000s remake. That one I know of. I haven't seen it.
There was, okay. Yeah. I watched a little bit of that, and I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. What really turned me off was the idea there was like a priest or a pastor or something who was like, "Oh, aliens exist, therefore God is not real."
No,
like,
I know, I don't. Okay, so it was a really big event in like 83, 84,
yeah.
And like they turned out they're basically look like humans and stuff, and then they find out that they're lizards underneath.
They're lizards, or yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And my buddy took it to college. It was like 10 years later, and like even in 10 years between 84 and 94, like all the commercials look dated, except for the Ronald Reagan campaign ads. That was weird. The 84 Reagan campaign ad still held up in 1994, but but no other ad on a major event did. That tells you something. But anyway, so I bring that up to say, like an alien deception thing. It's when you have one side that's known for being headed by the father of lies, it'd be hard to like adjudicate like what's going on, assuming that things aren't lying and whatever. The other option would be to treat them like pre-Cornelius, like God-fearers.
Yeah.
Well, what's that?
I can see
Cornelius God-fearers.
What's that?
It's like almost thralls. No.
It's like, hey, maybe you're not allowed to, you don't have access to the sacraments or something, but you're allowed to pray and sing songs.
Yeah, yeah, my postmillennialism kind of leans towards that too, because I think of humans as being sort of like the being the imago Dei. We are the ones who show forth the glory of God throughout all of creation. So we basically expand our righteous empire across the entire universe. Um, yeah.
I
So
probably
let me really quickly read this first. Dortius 1618 for $10. Thank you so much for the
based.
super chat. Reformed Presbyterian, but a wannabe Anglican here will just get you a bishop and get you some higher sacramental theology. For the last month, I've legit listened to all your streams while at work. Thank you for all the content. God bless you and your parish.
Based.
Hashtag Star Wars, pre-Disney Star Wars.
I,
Awesome. Thank you so much. I
I think the
appreciate that. And
Reformed
I'm glad that it's been
Episcopalians
helpful.
are headquartered somewhere near Philly, near me.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a seminary in that area. Yeah. Yeah, the REC is great. No, I definitely encourage you to look into some good faithful Anglicans parishes in your area.
Or
Um,
come to the PCA church near me.
yeah. Let's go ahead and read a few more of these right here real quick. I think the Pauline account of cosmic redemption and reconciliation is worth considering here. I agree. Yes, definitely. Romans 8. Is incredibly important. That's part of my postmillennialism. That is also just my recognition of what salvation is. It's cosmic. Christ's redemption of the world. You know, when we think of the redemption of man, right? The incarnation is necessary, specifically for our salvation on that. But there is a redeeming of the world that happens, and this is another option that there's one mediator between God and man, that is the man Jesus Christ, but that's between God and man, as in humans. Maybe we are meant to be that mediation that bring people to God through our image bearing of Christ, right? So maybe we are those mediators to those other alien species. Again, this is all like complete
Yeah.
speculation. This is
Totally. Yeah.
yeah. So I
My problem with that specific speculation would be that the scriptures don't provide us any like manual or mechanism for like, hey, you're going to find these non-human entities. Here's how they are integrated, or if at all, into the divine economy, and how you're to represent the divine. It just, the scripture just has no account of that. So really, in that scenario, frankly, the only saving scenario for Christianity at that point would be basically we get like a new testament. We get New Testament plus basically new prophets verifiably.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
God, who basically give those instructions.
Or very low subscription. Very low subscription. Yeah. No. So
find out the unforgivable sin for only $5 a month on my Patreon. Let the reader understand.
Oh yeah. Capturing that monetary thing. No. You're gonna have to read this one, Paul. Given the first two words there.
Oh yes. Jay Dyer said that Saint Seraphim's orthodoxy in the religion of the future touches on UFOs being demonic or something like that. I have the book and need to read it. Have you all read it? I've heard it promoted a lot very recently by ortho guys online, mainly ortho bro types, but I don't think it's strictly relevant to them being ortho bro. It's just that many of them happen to like Seraphim Rose, which is fair enough. And from all of them, I've heard that he basically says that in the book. I haven't read it myself. I don't know if I intend to. Maybe I will. But just from that basic idea, I would generally agree that much of the phenomena, if legit, would probably be demonic. Where I would disagree is assuming they're representing it accurately would be if it's in principle, they must be demonic. They can't be true ETs, which I think Easterners, at least committed trad Easterners, especially ortho bros, I think they have a much stronger commitment to like in principle, they can't be intelligent image-bearing ETs. Probably because of their high cosmic view of the incarnation.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Because the incarnation of Christ himself in some way redeemed the whole universe, not just mankind, not even just Earth, but the whole universe, which like that's the problem I kind of have with some of the later Eastern fathers and like Eastern Orthodox theologians, properly speaking, where they talk about that, where it kind of sets off my inner empiricist where I go like, okay, now we have the basic ideas in the scriptures of cosmic salvation, where God will eventually, at the end of all things, he'll consummate all things to himself. All of creation will be redeemed, everything will be made new, so on and so forth. Okay, that's fair enough, and reunited to the Son of God. Okay, that's fair enough. I can understand that. But then when they start talking about how like Christ coming to earth, and it didn't just the simple scriptural teaching, it redeemed mankind from our sins, it gave us the way to salvation, and now we have to work out our salvation in fear and trembling with the grace of the Holy Spirit, being sanctified by the blood of Christ. Okay, that's that. But then when these certain Eastern theologians go into the incarnation specifically, and the death of Christ redeemed the whole cosmos, in the sense of like literally every star, every nebula, every galaxy, it redeemed all of that towards God. I'm like, okay, but what does that even mean now? Like that kind of, the way they often say it, it just sounds like just words. That it sounds nice, it sounds really grand, but like, okay, what does that mean? Like, let's just look at the concrete facts. Okay, Christ incarnated. From the scripture's testimony, we've been given the Spirit. We can be baptized into Christ. Okay, we've got that. That's tangible. What's changed in space? Or just even on Earth's ecology, what's changed in Earth's ecology? Like predators still hunt prey. There's still diseases. The stars are still the stars. They're still beautiful, but also massive and terrifying. There's still black holes. There's still nebulae. In terms of those concrete things, so just with much of their grand cosmic redemption and the incarnation type thing, with the way they say it, it tends to be a bit meaningless to me. But yeah.
So if I could give some pushback for that, because I'm sympathetic to what the Eastern Orthodox are saying there, is that just as we still sin, right? The same sort of challenge can be given brought to us. Like, well, wait a minute, you're redeemed. How are you still sinning? The cosmos is being redeemed through the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, and it is still sort of in a state of disrepair. So it's in that double sort of the just and sinner, as the Lutherans would say. So I can understand it in that way, and the redemption of the cosmos is the lifting of the curse, because in Genesis there's not an explicit statement of like, Adam and Eve, you are now cursed and you have received original sin, right? In fact, if anything, there's more of an emphasis on the cursing of the ground, the cursing of the world, right? So that's sort of how I think of it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just be quick. I won't say more after this, but like, sure, but we do actually have, even in man, even if we still sin somewhat, we actually do still have the evidences. Like, okay, something changed. We've got the church, number one. We've got the sacraments. We've got baptism, and we have the spiritual evidences, which the New Testament is all about in terms of our repair. But what's actually changed in terms of how the universe operates? Like,
and this is where my postmillennialism comes in. That is why the spreading of the church, the healing of we've cured so many diseases. We have cured so much of the food problems, water problems, all these sorts of things. Advancements in health and all that sort of stuff. So that, anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
I had two thoughts, and one I have to backtrack earlier to a little bit before this. For this Eastern Orthodox thing, would this be similar to like what we were talking about earlier with some of the young Earth creationists, where they're so fixated on so rigid in their paradigm of what they think the implications of the incarnation are, that like it would just throw it into left field. Again, I largely believe almost all of the residual stuff is spiritual of some nature, and a lot of it is demonic. But so I'm not going against that conclusion, but it's like, again, it's how you get to the conclusion, right? Where I don't want to necessarily conclude a priori that they're demonic. The other thing I was thinking is when we were saying like, okay, there's not really enough scriptural evidence for this stuff. Could you imagine, like, in the pre-modern era, like in classical antiquity, when the Bible was written, like we start talking about like stuff on other planets and stuff, like even if it was true, like that, could you imagine like that would just be, like how that would I think that would be a major hindrance into for that era for promulgating the gospel, right? Where I got to start talking about
Yeah.
like other planets and things like
Yeah.
that. And I think that might be a major reason why we don't have, even if they do exist, why we don't have that information. Because the Bible is not just for post World War II UFO era, but it's for like it's for the 1500s, it's for the 200s, and that sort of thing.
And this goes back to that issue. I'm thankful you brought this up. This goes back to that issue of that sort of new scriptura thing, because oftentimes it's almost inseparable. The new scriptura comes with a very, very limited in scope approach to the Bible was written for me. Well, yes, but not just for you, right? And all of it applies to you, but we often think of, not we, but the people who sort of have this mindset often think of scripture as, well, God wrote this letter to me specifically for me, so I don't really need to do any sort of hard research on things. Just the first impression I get of it is therefore the correct one. So I don't need to challenge my own cultural norms, my own sort of presuppositions into any of this. Now they're not actively saying this, but oftentimes it comes out this way, right? Well, why can't aliens exist? Well, because if I were God and if I were writing the Bible, I would explicitly say that aliens exist, because the only people I'm writing to is the people in my generation.
Exactly.
Well,
If I were God.
No, don't
Yeah.
Paul. Like, so I do a lot of Catholic apologetic stuff. So
Mhm.
that's a lot of those arguments are, well, if I were God, I would have a papacy because I would make
Yeah.
sure this. And it's like,
Exactly.
no,
yeah.
we need a reason from if there's a papacy, not like what
Exactly.
you essentially you're just wish projecting, and then you know what I mean, like onto alien, whether
Bible
there's
101.
aliens or not.
Bible 101, what does our Lord say to Isaiah? My thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and my ways are higher than your ways. So like that's literally the start. The pre-suppers, both on the Reform side and on the Eastern Orthodox side, are completely right on this. And I hold it myself. Yeah, that's actually our starting point for reasoning.
Yes.
Ironically, I do think
Hold on this comment. Let Paul continue. Sorry.
I do think, ironically, the ortho pre-suppers in the J diosphere, they ironically tend to violate that principle a bit when they and kind of suppose, oh, God would do this, God would do that, blah blah blah. But putting that to the side, that fundamental impulse is correct. We actually start with, well, what has God done? What does God say? You don't suppose, oh, God would do this. The only ways in which that is actually appropriate is with stuff like literal logic, like actual deductive reasoning, where deductive logic basically deals with like just what is or could be. And anything that is illogical is like by definition nonsense. It literally couldn't be. Like a square circle. That's literally a nonsense item. You can't actually even imagine a square circle. You can say the words, you can suppose it in words that there could be a square circle, but you can't actually conceptualize it, just because the nature of a square and the nature of a circle are definitionally opposed.
Yeah.
So we can say, yes, God would not create a square circle because he cannot. But beyond that, we can go crazy.
Lewis has a great quote, which I don't remember the quote in full, but it goes something along the lines of this. We often think that it's sort of more pious to say like God can do X, even logically contradictory things, but logically contradictory things are nonsense, and we don't do anything to make God greater by adding nonsense to the things that he can do.
Exactly.
It's they have no meaning. Square circle has no actual legitimate meaning outside of the fact that it is a contradiction. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to go over the comment there from Cleve to Christ at 8:46 a.m. Yeah, I think there is a positive. Again, I mentioned the Collins elite. There's plenty of people in the government for decades who have come to this. There's so much interesting things. Like when you touch a paranormal thing, it touches like all these other things. We haven't even gotten to mention about how there's a bunch of reports of Bigfoot coming out of UFOs. By the way, that's a legitimate thing. Okay. Um, so there's a whole host of interesting things, and then like another interesting thing is like what if they're like what the taxonomy is like a lot of people believe it's like trapped spirits of Nephilim and not really demons, and whether the distinction between them. And I'm like I think people like take Enoch to like not too seriously, yeah, too seriously, like base thing like this realm through
Yeah.
Enoch, and it's just like I don't know, maybe so. It's hard to know. It's hard to know because what do you know? And then I did a live stream years ago where the report, but basically people who are in nuclear silos and like kind of orbs and like UFO type stuff come in and like shut down the nuclear missiles and then like
Yeah.
leave.
Oh yeah.
Those are origins. Those are origins. Resurrected souls. The orbs are coming from heaven.
The orbs. It's origin.
To stop the nukes.
He's coming as a sphere, man.
Origins orbs are coming to clap you.
There's spheres. So East Ortho Bros debunked on Origin.
Origin isn't vindicated.
Yeah. Also, I want to go back on this. Not go back, but like revisit this because I think this is another thing I want to add. God is rational and orderly. To do anything against rationality, logic, and order is to go against his nature.
Yeah.
If we ascribe contradiction to the quote power of God, which again, this is not an actual thing, right? Then literally any statement you make is both true and not true at the same time, because all things then are just truth and not truth at the same time. It just becomes absolutely insane, and you cannot make heads or tails of anything in reality if we allow for contradiction. God is creating the universe while not existing, while being me, while also being this hymnal right here, and therefore Islam is true and Christianity is true, and both are false. And it goes in endlessly. It's just
it's
anyway.
That you see those kinds of things. I can't put names to them. I've read them before, but like certain 20th century modernist theologians in particular, like hyper liberal theologians from the 20th century, who like to wax poetic on like, oh, God's nature is like, it's like above truth. It's above the laws of logic. I think one of them, what's his name? That Lutheran.
I want to say Descartes.
Theologian. What's that even mean?
There's this. I'm thinking of one specifically, like Lutheran. There's this Lutheran pietist theologian, a modern one. Let me quickly look him up. Lutheran pietist modern theologian. The outlaw God. I think that's what. What is it? Stephen Paulson. That's it. I'm pretty sure I heard him in particular.
Oh, really?
He's a living current one. Where he basically made something like, oh, God is like above, he's like above logic. There's like, he can be contradictory or I forgot exactly what he said, but basically something along the lines of he transcends logic. He's above it. He's not bound to logic. There can be contradiction or whatever. And it's just like, okay, can I say the S word here?
Sure. I'll let you. Kids, watch out.
You're just making shit up at that point. All right,
you really there must be a term for it where it's like it's highfalutin language, but it, like when you press down, you're like, does this mean anything?
I think it's a few words. I think it's sophistry. Sophistry is the most obvious word. It's just like, okay, now you're okay. I won't say that word. You're doing mental. You're just playing with words and ideas now in a way that's utterly meaningless, and you should be stuffed in a closet and bullied. Okay.
Yeah.
That's basically where it's at.
I actually consider it liberal theology. This whole idea of God being able to do contradictory stuff.
That's usually what liberal theologians do. Yeah. Like certain of them, at least from like the 20th century in particular.
Oh, so Father James.
Real quick, I just want to say real quick, I think Descartes also held to this idea that God could do logically contradictory things. I know there was a sort of Enlightenment and post-Enlightenment era philosopher who did a few of them, but I think it might have been Descartes. Anyway, go ahead.
So I put a couple things in the private chat. I found the cultish.
Yep.
It's called Alien
Yeah,
Revelations. I put that link in there. I looked up.
yeah. I linked it up to the show notes. Yep.
Okay, so the second guy, I know he has some like a 2-part interview in Cultish as well, but he has this article that I see that you can download online or something called UFOs Caught in a Web of Deception. He's a Lutheran pastor, Boshi, I think his name is how you pronounce that. But
Okay.
anyway, I think he's the guy where a couple people from the government, some Christians, came to him and like, look, this is what's going on with the UFO stuff, and we're getting a bad feeling about this. We think this might be demonic. This is like decades ago or something like that. So he details some of that. And then the government does it when you go into like not just the MK. Are you guys familiar with MK Ultra?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So
Yep.
not just the MK Ultra stuff, but in the Cold War and probably even today, like the intelligence agencies were doing remote viewing and a lot of occultic practices and experimenting with a lot of stuff. There is a link between UFOs and a lot of occult things, including Aleister Crowley and
Oh yeah.
Jack Parsons, who was into the occult stuff, who he helped found the Jet Propulsion Lab for NASA. And there is a major UFO event in Los Angeles that they think is linked to maybe some of what Jack Parsons was doing in the occult realm. There's like for Crowley, he was getting he did like some sort of sex magic ritual where and they drew the entity they saw and the entity kind of looks like what you would say is a big-headed, small-eyed sort of thing. It looks very similar, not completely similar, but very similar to this. One of the things I would like to mention for people for the spiritual stuff is like, a lot of people are like, oh, why would a demon or a angel or whatever need a spacecraft or whatever? And I think in the Bible you see a lot of things where, well, first of all, if they're being deceptive, who knows what they're doing? Who knows if that space? There are reports from Jacques Vallée and all of recoveries of at least portions of spacecraft or allegedly spacecraft and stuff, UFO craft and that sort of thing. And I don't think things fit neatly where we see in the Bible of angels taking on human bodies, and we don't know what the full capability of the spiritual entities are.
Yeah.
So if they have developed a technology, there are old there's the pagan, what was it, the Prometheus myth where they brings down fire technology. So and then there's other stuff. There's other, maybe it was from Enoch or other things where like we get, and other myths worldwide where we get technology or understanding from essentially the spiritual realm or hybrids or something like that. So it's just because we get like a new microchip or maybe an anti-gravity propulsion device or some sort of technology in the physical world does not mean that's based on the laws of physics that we figure out or something. Or maybe they reverse engineered silicon chips from early UFOs. I don't know. If we find something like that, that doesn't necessarily negate that they were somewhat quasi spiritual entities or spiritual entities. We got to open our mind to more possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to add.
I just wanted to mention one really quick question. I hope you can give a quick answer to, because I want to move on to the multiple incarnations theory, which is the most fascinating one for me.
Yeah.
But real quick, I still believe that like other alien races, just like us, but they have no redemption story. I still think that would put the faith into question at best. But putting that to the side, and whereas you think that, well, it will just mean that we have a mandate to Christianize all the alien races or whatever, putting that to the side, would you at least grant that your post-millennial theory of like we're meant to like conquer the cosmos, basically, would you at least grant that would at least fit better on the theory that we are alone in the universe? We're the only intelligent race, and the rest of the universe is just free real estate. We're meant to take it and tame it, basically.
No, I actually would say the opposite. I think
Okay,
that
interesting.
it's yeah, if we're supposed, it makes no sense, not no sense, but it makes less sense to me to be like, okay, humanity, here's the universe, and you are my image bearers. Uh,
Mm,
go preach. My church is called St. Francis. Go preach to the birds. You know, it's like,
mm,
okay, sure, that has a spiritual benefit. I'm not gonna say like whatever,
mm.
but I think it kind of involves us representing God to people who can actually be like, "Oh, you are representing God. I see that you are representing God to me." Like, who can we can have a conversation with, if that makes sense.
All right. Anyway, let's talk about multiple incarnations. That's my favorite theory,
All right,
100%.
go ahead. You lead on this one then.
So that's my absolute favorite theory. It's actually the basis. I actually mentioned this in our first stream we did with this couple or so
Yeah.
years ago in my personal science fiction lore world building thing, which I'm wanting to make like just hyper detailed and realistic. The split off from our real life timeline is mid 2015. I can explain that another time. But basically, in the thing of this universe, there's intelligent alien species galore. Many of them have preceded us by, I'm still trying to get how long I want the universe to have been, but at least by like 1 million years. And when we get into the galactic community, there's like many of thousands of them in our galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things is that at least most of them, I'm toying with the question of maybe there's some races, like some whole alien races that are just reprobate, basically. But at least a good chunk of them, if not most of them, also have analogous stories and faiths of the Son of God, whatever, coming down, becoming one of them, and atoning for their sins. And humanity, we discover that. We also discover that there's analogs of other false religions on these other worlds. And so for humanity, when we become integrated, it basically destroys atheism within a few decades or within a few years. And B, it basically reveals, okay, so this spiritual battle we see on Earth is actually being waged across the universe, basically. These same spiritual entities are vying for the allegiance of trillions upon trillions of life forms everywhere. Now, of course, the ultimate theological question becomes, okay, is that at all possible or reconcilable, particularly with Chalcedonian Christianity, that Christ could have incarnated as a human and then as a vegan, as an Alpha Centaurian, so on and so forth? Is that possible? And initially, I found it, especially at the time of our first stream when we talked about it a little bit, I found it very hard to reconcile. But more recently, as I've started to dig into it, I actually think, okay, no, I think there's actually a pretty clean way to reconcile it. And that comes from, I think, what you mentioned, the reference to Thomas Aquinas. And that's actually the center of this book right here, the author, Anglican author, but he relies primarily on Thomism and tries to demonstrate in multiple chapters that actually multiple incarnations across multiple races are possible using Thomistic reasoning. And the reason for that is this particular main passage from Thomas Aquinas. Let me just pull it up real quick. Aquinas.cc, Summa Theologica. I'm pretty sure I remember the reference. It is Summa Theologica, Part 3, Question 3, Article 7. Or is it? Hold up one moment. Or is it questions? I might have lost it. But basically, I'll get the quote in a second. But basically, Aquinas opens the in theory possibility that while Christ has only incarnated once as a man, and he will only ever incarnate once as a man, yet it is within his power, it is totally possible for him to incarnate as a human multiple times, and that it would still be the one God. I'll get up the section quickly, but basically, obviously, he's talking about humans there. He's not talking about multiple alien races. But the author of this book in particular, and I would agree, would argue that it would therefore be in principle extendable to other alien races, because for Aquinas, even with multiple human incarnations, there's still one divine subject. And so likewise, if Christ decided to also incarnate as another alien race, it would still maintain the univocity of God. He would still be fully God and fully man. He would also just be fully Martian, fully vegan, so on and so forth, times multiple thousands. It's within divine power. Because
I need to correct you really quickly.
Mm.
Please do not say God is vegan. He is not vegan. No.
True. No, that is blasphemy. I'll withdraw that.
So, what I guess after Chalcedon, one of the things I kind of like leave because I just like don't understand, like I don't have the mental capacity to understand, and people say, like when it gets into say Christ's mental states, like I'm like, are you saying Christ has two minds? Like there's a divine, like so I'm just like, you know what? I don't know how that reconciles, so I don't want to like.
Yeah.
We even for the one incarnation, I try to leave that alone. Yeah. That's just me. Yeah. Where
we can't fully understand the incarnation. Christ does have two minds, according to Chalcedon. I fully submit to that. What happens with a lot of, especially analytical philosophy, is that they first equate minds with persons. So then they therefore say, if Christ has two minds, then Christ of necessity is two persons, which obviously would be Nestorianism, which we reject. And we would say, no, Christ has a human mind and a divine mind, yet is one person still. Sorry. Good.
Well, so I say, like, I'm okay with that in one regards, but I'm also like, I can't comprehend how that meshes. So I try to just like not, you know, like if I can't wrap my mind around that, no pun intended. So if you take that problem and then you have multiple incarnations, then I'm just like, okay, so there's a human mind, and then there's a Martian mind, and then a Venusian mind combined with the second person of the Trinity's mind in three different places. I'm like, I'm out. I can't comprehend this. I'm like, I can't like get my mind around like that aspect of the hypostatic union in just this incarnation. Like I don't, please don't ask me to like try to harmonize that for multiple incarnations.
Yeah, Paul, I had interrupted you. Go ahead. You're going to say, Paul. Yeah.
Yes. So I found the quote. I'll just share my screen quickly if you could pull it up, so I can just read it off there for people. So this is, I was actually correct. I just didn't go to check. So it's in Summa Theologica, Part 3, Question 3, Article 7, whether one divine person can assume two human natures. And there's multiple, and as per the Summa, there's multiple objections to his position, and then he gives his positive position. I think we only need to give his positive position that's most relevant. So he says, what has power for one thing and no more has a power limited to one. Now, the power of a divine person is infinite, nor can it be limited by any created thing. Hence, it may not be said that a divine person so assumed one human nature as to be unable to assume another. For it would seem to follow from this that the personality of the divine nature was so comprehended by one human nature as to be unable to assume another to its personality. And this is impossible, for the uncreated cannot be comprehended by any creature. Hence, it is plain, whether we consider the divine person in regard to his power, which is the principle of the union, or in regard to his personality, which is the term of the union, it has to be said that the divine person, over and beyond human nature which he has assumed, can assume another distinct human nature. So, sorry, I took it off so you can bring us back if you want. So the important thing with...
How do I do that? I'm trying to figure out. Oh, could you put it back up so I can... Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Let me see.
I don't know if that stuff things up or not. I've shared it again, so...
Let me see. Add. All right, and then remove. No, add. There we go. And then remove. There we go.
All right, sweet. So now, obvious thing, he's specifically talking about two human natures. But even there, the principle is interesting. The basic principle he gives is that the divine power is infinite. It can't be comprehended by a creature. That is, it can't be exhaustively contained entirely within one created thing. Therefore, God is more than capable of incarnating as another person and another person, so on and so forth, in principle. In that regard, then, that removes at least one of, if not the biggest stumbling block to the idea that God could incarnate in another alien species. It leaves that open in principle. Now, one could still try to argue that, well, here's the thing, Aquinas is only talking about two human natures, and so there's still like a unity of the human nature in that sense. But if he was to incarnate as another nature entirely of another sapient species, well, that at minimum, that adds another factor into the mix where, okay, maybe it doesn't necessarily follow. Maybe there would be a problem with another natural suppositum. And I believe that's basically what I haven't fully gone through it again, but this book basically goes through the whole case, how Thomas's principles leads to the possibility of other alien races. My basic answer with that, as someone who's not an expert in Thomas and who's only just started speculating on these issues, basically, my answer right now would basically be, well, it actually wouldn't matter anyway, because whether it's a human nature and another human nature, or a human nature and another vegan nature, with respect to the divine nature, it wouldn't change anything at all. It would be just another creature that has the divine essence in union with it, and it wouldn't. How would I say? It wouldn't alter God any more than God becoming a human in the first place would. And so it's wholly possible, just as if God could incarnate as another human, and that becoming a second human would not exhaust the divine nature. And there's other objections he answers to, by the way, like the claim that, oh, well, it'll create a second suppositum and so add some kind of multiplicity to God or whatever. There's other objections that he applies here. But basically, to put it in short, whatever issues there would be with God becoming like another alien race on top of being human, it wouldn't be any different to whether he could become another human. That would be the basic argument that I would have. So if we were able to solve the problems of God becoming another human, then that would open the door completely to him becoming another race.
The best Calvinistic possibility is he comes down as another race. He tells everybody they're all damned and doesn't do anything for them.
First, we do need to point out that the Filioque caused all of this.
I stubbed my toe this morning, and I was like, the Filioque.
There are two causes for all evil. It's either the Filioque or the Jews,
or Luther.
True,
or
and Luther.
Yeah, those three. Yeah, those three.
Filioque, the Filioque, Luther, and the Jews. That's the triplex cause of all problems in the world.
Well, Filioque caused Luther for the Eastern Orthodox.
True. So
Luther took the Jewish canon or something, or he removed 500 trillion books from the Bible.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay, so the Filioque caused Luther. Maybe the Jews caused the Filioque. So maybe there's kind of an anti-divine procession that way.
It's a circle.
It's an Ouroboros of heresy.
Actually, I think Luther went back in time, caused the Jews to then cause the Filioque,
caused the smaller canon.
And now it's just a circle.
Yeah.
Luther got in contact with the demon Tic Tacs to take him back in time to cause the Jews to cause the Filioque. Man, we solved the problem. Someone call up J. Dyer, please.
He's like, it's really important I take the Book of Wisdom out. That's going to change everything. It's going to change everybody's theology radically if Judith is not in the canon.
So true, King. So true.
All right. So I want to deal with this real quick. this speculation misses the point. Is Christ the new Adam or not? And if so, is that a subjective or an objective reality? Did all creation fall in Adam, as the scripture teaches, or no? Now, I did reference this about, what, an hour ago or so. So maybe you were not here, get Lance, for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that part, the incarnation itself specifically, because as in Adam, we are all fallen because of Adam. Now, that might be true for other fallen creatures in their Adam, Borklog of the Alpheans, you just
Yes.
did a bad thing, and he ate of the he ate of the uh or drank of the forbidden river or something like that.
God, God created Borklog and Feyen, not Borklog and Vlorklog.
That's
I can't wait to meet the Alpha Centaurian homophobes. We're gonna get on so well.
oh yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
yeah.
I this is why it deals with two. This is why it's such an important thing about the question of whether one incarnation would be necessary or multiple would be necessary for this. Um, I lean slightly towards one incarnation, and that's because I have an elevated view. I think part of it goes down to one of two things. I would say that humanity, insofar as physical creation is concerned, is the pinnacle of God's creation, right? So I would say that, um, call me a speciesist or whatever. I would say that humans would be ontologically superior to the Alpheans, and we are to rule over them because we are the those who are made in the image of God. And whether or not they are made in the image of God, I would say it's in a much, at best, a much lesser degree kind of thing, if that's even the case. So I would say that if that's the case, then it makes sense to me that only one incarnation is necessary, because we are called to spread the gospel out to all of creation. And part of that spreading of the church, spreading of the gospel mandate includes, it goes back to the garden itself, where what was the command given to Adam and Eve? It was actually to, honestly, in a sense, expand the borders of the garden. It was basically to go and conquer and subjugate creation itself. So that's sort of how I see it. The mandate has not changed. We are just being brought back to that mandate through the gospel, if that makes sense. Does anyone want to
Right.
add anything?
Yeah, this really comes down to maybe some of what we were talking earlier about the Eastern Orthodox and some of the young earthers, some of the Eastern
Mhm,
Orthodox. So the Eastern Orthodox concern would be about the cosmos and the incarnation. Um,
mhm,
some of the, especially the young Earth, like
mhm,
professional groups and all, their main concern is probably how the fall affected creation or the cosmos.
mhm,
So if you had multiple falls, I think that might be one of their main concerns. And really in terms, so like if like a from an old Earth perspective, like a lot of it is the fall is, I guess there's multiple views, and it's like how does it impact the world in general? How does it impact humanity specifically, right? So I think that
mhm,
that's where the concerns come in, and is uh like how wedded you are. Like so like you everybody harmonizes information that comes in,
mhm,
and it depends on how flexible you are with your paradigm, like to accept new information or reject new information, essentially. Whether so if you're again if you're going to have the rigidity where all of Christianity falls if you run into an alien race, that would be why. As opposed to like, oh, okay, I don't think it's true. I don't think there are other alien races, and I think the fall impacts the cosmos or the incarnation, redeems all the cosmos. But if you legitimately were convinced that an alien race weren't demonic deception, then you would have to kind of, your choices are to either modify your view of the redemption and fall of the cosmos, right? Or how it impacts outside of humanity, or you reject all of Christianity. Those are your options, I think.
I would say with this respect that only in a very surface level possibility would the possibility of other alien races experiencing sin and redemption, so on and so forth, especially if they existed before us, if it happened before our time, that would only call into question, like in particular in Romans, that's specifically like in Romans 5, where it's most clearly said, through Adam, sin entered the world, the cosmos. That would only be an issue if you assume that the cosmos, like literally the Greek term cosmos, specifically means the whole created universe, including beyond the earth, which is actually not necessarily true. It's actually very common in Greek, in the New Testament, for cosmos to specifically mean like the human inhabited world, our floating orb, basically. So that's very defensible. So it can easily be read as through Adam, to paraphrase, through Adam, sin entered the earth, basically. But sin may have entered Trappist 5, like some few million years ago before us. So it's entirely exegetically possible. There are more particular terms when that are more identifiable with the whole universe. So that would be like tapanta, all things, which is like with 1 Corinthians 15, Christ will reconcile all things to himself. And so I would agree, like 1 Corinthians 15, for example, that does refer to the true consummation of all things, not just like a localized eschaton just in the earth where we're like this shining little bubble of perfection in a chaotic universe. No, 1 Corinthians 15 would certainly be a reference to like the true eschaton of the universe. But that's because the particular term in there is more particular to that, whereas cosmos is more open to interpretation.
Wait, where is it? Right here. All right, you've dealt with this a bit, but let's bring this up and sort of add to it. But what was the ultimate point of the incarnation? So that God could enter into death and destroy it by its own power. So did Jesus, the God-man, objectively destroy death for all creation or not?
He destroyed it.
I think there's a. Go ahead.
Well, as the New Testament makes very clear, if you don't overread into it, he destroyed death for us, for mankind. What was the point of the incarnation? It was to redeem mankind from death, from sin. So he did it for us. That leaves an open question for, okay, how does it work for other alien races?
Right.
Yeah, and yeah. I would add to that real quick. With the recognition of death, it can go both ways. It can go where Christ's death does have this, for the incarnation for humans, does conquer that for humans. We recognize. I don't know what your theology is for both of you on this, but I mean, I don't necessarily say that we're not going to be able to be having meat and stuff like that in the renewed creation. So there might be forms in which
is it going to be that lab-grown crap? Are we going to have that lab-grown crap?
I hope not. No.
More like
when I think of death,
it'll be more like Star Trek, where you just go into the kiosk and get a steak.
The replicator.
No. My point is that when we talk about death, I think primarily what is in mind is that it is human death that is the concern.
Yes.
I don't think Scripture ever explicitly states that it's animal death that is included. I think, if anything, that's an evangelical thing that was added on in like the 19th or 20th century.
That is so this is basically the old earther versus young earther debate.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it to defend a young earth. And I'm not even saying, I'm not even saying like, old young earth creationism is wrong or old earth creation. That's not my point. I think it was used as an argument against old earth creationism or theistic evolution or whatever.
Yeah, no, but that's the main bone of contention, right? From the young earth perspective. So, but I don't think it needs to be. Like, you can have a young earth and the question is like, how old is the earth? Not and then so they bring up as a supporting thing the how that reading of Romans, but I don't
Yeah.
think that reading of Romans is necessary. It's possible, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
When it talks about death reigning from Adam to Moses, it doesn't necessitate like all forms of death, as in like even animals, was non-existent until Adam, and then from Adam to Moses, kind of thing. Um, anyway, I do got to get going soon. Oh wait, let's go ahead and read this real quick. Romans 8:19 through 23. That's the great cosmic redemption passage, but let me go ahead and read it in full. Was it Romans 8:19 to 23, correct?
right? Yep.
All right, there we go. Let's bring it closer here. I got so many tabs open because that's how I roll. Um, where is it? All right, here we go. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. Not sure exactly why this was brought up,
Well,
but
it would apply
if you
to in one rating, it would apply to all of creation, and I think that might be a good prima facie. Whether that's the correct interpretation or not, but that's
oh, I see what. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Um.
And I
So
tend to not
yeah,
believe
like
there are other alien races, non-spiritual alien races.
yeah.
Um, so I'm sympathetic to what they're saying, but
Mm.
I think we should keep an open mind.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll go ahead and close off with like final thoughts. One thing I would like is maybe painting a picture, a brief sketch of how you view this topic specifically about aliens, demons, angels, etc. And what the renewed creations look like when it comes to the resurrection. What does it sort of look like for our task? Or not just our task, but just what reality looks like from there, if that makes sense. Um, would you
Can
like
you
to go
reset that again?
first, Jeff? Say again.
Could you restate the question again?
Yeah. So the first part being the aliens, demons, angels, all that sort of stuff. What your thoughts are, concluding thoughts on that. Second is I'd like to see a sketch of what the resurrected life looks like. Um, and I'm most interested in like what that looks like with alien species being a reality, right? If obviously, Jeff, if you don't hold to that, then you don't feel compelled that you have to sort of make
No,
that statement
I'll try to
over and over.
entertain it as a
Yeah,
hypothetical.
yeah,
So
but
I'll
yeah.
go
Would you
first.
like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
first. So again, my general position is that uh, at least residual UFOs events are generally spiritual in nature, but that the spiritual realm can also manipulate the physical realm. So, and when you have a generally things in the paranormal realm, it's hard to detangle truth, uh, or and when you have beings that are known for deception and stuff like that, it's hard to figure things out. So I would not take any of these disclosures or anything and being like, okay, well, this is definitely the case of something.
Mhm.
I would I would try to familiarize yourself. I mean, if you're really interested in the topic, I would try to familiarize yourself with again. Uh, on my video on my channel, kind of as a kind of maybe an entry point, and the cultish thing that will be in the show notes is that
Mhm.
familiarize yourself with Jacques Vallée's work. Read John Keel's uh, Operation Trojan Horse, which is really interesting, and then yeah, don't I try not to be too doctrinaire on like what you think something is, and then but don't, just like, oh, some being came down and said a bunch of new agey stuff, so let's chuck the Bible. No, you can't try,
Yeah.
test the spirits.
Oh yeah.
And then
Yeah. 100%.
I'm of the view that, like, when Christ comes back, there'll be a revamp of kind of how the physical laws work. So maybe like the aliens stay on their world, and if that's the case, again, I don't really believe in another race, but if they did exist, they would be on their world, we would be on our world, and maybe we can interdimensionally travel between them, or something like that. But then, I mean, the main thing is you're going to be worshiping God, like in that end state. But I think we should, even if it's not true, take the post millennial view and try to, work out our salvation into all the world, and try to redeem things. And if there are aliens who come who are legitimately not deceptive entities or whatever, just handle that as it comes, and mention the gospel to them, and try to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
All right, Paul.
Yeah, I would pretty much what Jeff said. Yeah, in terms of the practicality of it, I'd pretty much agree with that wholeheartedly. In terms of the post-resurrection state, I mean, I think it would be pretty simple to imagine that. Like, just as with, well, what will the post-resurrection state look like for us now? We're going to get new spiritual bodies, but we're going to be like, there's going to be Anglos, there's going to be Germans, there's going to be Ugandans, there's going to be Han Chinese, there's going to be mixtures like myself and what have you, and we're all going to be hanging about in heaven. I think if there's other redeemed alien races, if with that possibility in particular, that's just going to be added to the multitude. We're going to see people who look substantially more different than the rest of us humans, but we're all going to be in glorified bodies all together. And of course, you can speculate on, well, okay, will the races still have their own place in heaven, or is it going to be a totally mixed multitude? That's just speculating on how many angels dance on a pinhead, basically, at that point. So the basic thing would be, if there's other redeemed or redeemable alien races, however the mechanism, whether we bring the gospel to them or they have their own incarnation of the gospel, then we'll just be sharing space with them up in the Father's mansion. Otherwise, well, yeah, just in that scenario, yeah, that's basically what it'll be, and you can't really speculate more beyond that. And nonetheless, whatever the scenario, whether we alone have the divine mission, or if we share the divine mission with other alien races, and assuming Christ doesn't return before then, we would certainly have the mandate to populate, colonize, tame the universe, go as far up the Kardashev scale as we possibly can before Christ returns. Basically, I would 100% agree with that, and that would be super exciting. That would be super awesome. And yeah, and actually, in that light, if I can, I want to share my screen one more time. So there's this awesome poem. There's a poem that the author of this book, he actually brings right at the start of the book, and I want to read it. It's awesome. It's a 20th century poem by a Christian woman. She was a suffragist, unfortunately, but this poem does actually go hard. So it goes: with this ambiguous earth, his dealings have been told us. These abide, the signal to a maid, the human birth, the lesson, and the young man crucified. But not a star of all the innumerable host of stars has heard how he administered this terrestrial ball. Our race have kept their Lord's entrusted word. Of his earth-visiting feet, none knows the secret, cherished, perilous, the terrible, shamefast, frightened, whispered, sweet, heart-shattering secret of his way with us. No planet knows that this, our wayside planet, carrying land and wave, love and life multiplied, and pain and bliss, bears as chief treasure one forsaken grave. Nor in our little day may his devices with the heavens be guessed, his pilgrimage to thread the Milky Way, or his bestowals there be manifest. But in the eternities, doubtless we shall compare together here a million alien gospels, in what guise he trod the Pleiades, the lyre, the bear. Oh, be prepared, my soul, to read the inconceivable, to scan the myriad forms of God those stars unroll, when, in our turn, we show to them a man. And honestly, that poem so well shows what I personally, putting aside the arguments, what I personally hope that is the case. Like in my person, whether it's my flesh speaking or my spirit, I genuinely hope that there are myriads of alien races to whom Christ revealed himself individually, and then we can intercourse with that experience together, whether in this life or the next. That I seriously would love to be true.
Yeah, my thoughts. So I do actually believe that it's very likely that uh, there are aliens out there. I think it's a mixture of aliens and demons and angels and all and hoaxes and all that sort of stuff. So it's a mixture of things, but there actually genuinely are aliens out there. Um, I want I hold to again a post-millennial understanding of our future. And one thing that I want to emphasize, by the way, it's the beautiful poem, and I love that cosmic outlook. I think it's so great and important. Um, One thing I want to emphasize is that we've the West has gotten into, and I don't know if the East has ever did this too or not, but has gotten into this idea that our eternal home is a an immaterial existence in heaven, when our hope, according to 1 Corinthians 15, is the resurrection itself, which means that we are actually going to have a body like Christ. Christ's body was not bound within the laws of physics. We see that because he walks through doors, he appears, disappears, all that sort of stuff. But he actually is still it's a body in the sense that he's still eating and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to show a video. I forgot to. We don't have time for it now because I got to get going. But my point being is this: that we're going to live in a renewed heaven and earth that is this reality, but is perfected and renewed. And I believe that part of our post-resurrection mandate, part of the way we worship God, is by spreading that kingdom even further and further and further and further and further. With the expansion of the universe, I think, like, sort of as the universe continues to expand, we expand into those borders, and it just never ends, right? So I see other sentient life being a sort of component of that, where you know, we make contact with new alien species, and we're just awestruck by the ingenuity of our creator. How, look at this. This is a squid-like species that does this, or that, or this is an avian species that does this, or that. And they communicate this way, and they came up with this technology and all that sort of stuff. And all of that is just the sort of way that one of the ways that we are showing our worshipful praise of the limitless imagination, if for lack of a better word, right now, of our Lord. And so I see that being what we sort of are doing as part of our mandate. Almost a Star Trekky kind of thing, but not atheistic. So
yeah, based, not space communists.
Yeah, not space commies either. Purely capitalistic system, nothing less.
Based space capitalism. With under the thumb of space Israel forever.
All right. All right. So, wait, let me see. Let me just get these last two, and then we'll go ahead and close off. You literally would not be able to mention the gospel to them if they are not human in any sense, per the incarnation, as they would need their own. I would disagree with that. I don't see why you would not be able to.
You can mention it to them.
Yeah.
Whether how it's applicable to them is kind of up in the air. Would be up in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, I can mention the gospel to an AI.
If they came down and said, "Hey, we heard you you have knowledge of the Savior, and please give that to us," it's all in terms of there would be details you have to leave out.
That's the other scenario I forgot to mention. We're out of time now, but the other scenario I forgot to mention where, like, Christ didn't come to them, but they did receive a prophet like, hey, this other race is going to come to whom
Yeah.
the Savior revealed himself. That would be lit.
Yeah. East Martian Trade Company. Amen. That's
Oh,
right.
British
Yes.
Empire, intergalactic British
Yes.
Empire
Yes.
Navy.
It's coming. It's coming back.
And we do need to get the spice going though too. That's the
Oh,
only way we
this
can.
what
Yeah.
was it? The spice
The spice must
flows.
flow.
The
Yes.
spice must flow.
All right. But yeah, I'm going to link this video that we don't have enough time to see it. I do have to get going, but there's a video that I wanted to lead into a whole different discussion about when I was talking about higher dimensions. We are in 3 dimensions, and it's a video that compares us as 3 dimensional beings to 2 dimensional creatures who, like, we're looking down on that. That is what it would be like for a 4 dimensional creature to look at a 3 dimensional creatures. So I invite you guys to look at that once you get the chance. But that's it. All right. Hope you all. Oh, go ahead and sort of promote your stuff if you want, guys.
Oh, so this Monday night on my channel, A Goy for Jesus, I will be having Timothy Kaufman on to talk about the best attested UFO event in world history. Which, Paul, what is
Fatima.
that?
Fatima.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Heck
would
yeah.
be
Heck
the
yeah.
Marian apparitions at Fatima, and the Miracle of the Sun is the a classic UFO event. So
Yeah, Sean, you recently did a debate on that. But yeah.
well, he did. They didn't really debate the UFO aspects
Whether it
of
was alien. Yeah.
well, that's the thing. I
Although
didn't say they were aliens. So,
yeah.
but it was a
Yeah,
UFO event.
he found it more demonic. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead,
Yes.
Paul. Uh, promote your stuff. We know. Yeah, most of my people know who you are, but go ahead.
Thank you very much again for having me, Father, for an awesome discussion. For those who don't know, I am The Other Paul. You can find me on YouTube, same name, The Other Paul. You can find my website, theotherpaul64.com. I post some stuff there every now and then, but it's also where if you want to become a supporter of mine, help me turn it into a job, you can support me there. And my first ever book, you can buy or download the PDF for free there through there as well, and any other future books I come out with. And that's me. My next big thing is a response video, a big one, to a certain author bro. And I'm just going to let that drop when it does, ideally next week. So get excited.
You doing a video or did you say
Yeah.
a book?
Video.
Oh, video. A certain ortho
Mhm.
bro.
Yeah, we'll be.
Mm.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you cleave to his channel so you can be prepared for that. All right. All right. Hopefully you all have a good weekend. Get ready for celebrating and worshiping our Lord this Sunday at Mass or at church. And God bless.
Thanks.
God bless.